In the wild, enemies are clear, or at least they're supposed to be. But what if the most feared scavengers of the jungle, the hyenas, did something no one could believe? What if they didn't attack but instead stood guard over the most vulnerable creature of their enemy? This is the shocking story of a lion cub left behind, alone and defenseless. The sun was setting over the dry savanna. The lion pride had gone hunting, leaving behind one cub hidden in the tall grass. But danger in the jungle never waits. From the shadows emerged a pack of hyenas, their laughter echoing in the evening air. For anyone watching, the ending seemed obvious. The cub would not survive the night, but then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the hyenas circled the cub, their teeth bared, their eyes sharp. They stood like guards, scanning the horizon for threats. At first glance, it looked like a trick, but the minutes passed, and the hyenas didn't harm the cub. They simply watched. Every second was filled with tension, but they turned on the cub. Was this some cruel game, or was nature showing us a side we had never seen before? Then, as if on cue, the hyenas suddenly burst into a frenzy. The cub cowered, bracing for the worst. But instead of attacking, they began an unusual ritual. The hyenas started cleaning themselves, licking and biting their fur. It was a sight so unexpected, so bizarre that it left those watching completely stunned. The young lion, sensing no immediate threat, hesitantly lifted its head to observe these strange actions. The hyenas, engrossed in their grooming, seemed oblivious to the cub's presence. They continued cleaning themselves thoroughly, paying no attention to the curious cub watching them. What were they trying to do? Were they plotting a strategy, getting ready to strike when the cub was least expecting it? Or was there another reason for their odd behavior? As the minutes ticked by, the cub, still unsure of what to make of this situation, decided to take advantage of the hyenas' preoccupation with their own hygiene. With cautious steps, he slowly moved away from the center of the circle. One wrong move, however, and all of this could end in disaster. The hyenas would surely pounce on him and end his life. Despite being cautious, the cub couldn't help but feel a sense of fear mixed with curiosity. He had never seen hyenas behave this way, nor had he ever been so close to them without being attacked. It was a risky move, but as the cub found his bearings and realized the hyenas were indeed too focused on themselves to notice his escape attempt, he made a dash for it. He ran with all the strength he could muster, weaving through the tall grass, hoping to get away from the potentially dangerous situation. His little heart pounded in his chest. Every rustle of the leaves sounded like the pursuing footsteps of a predator. But the cub pushed on, fueled by adrenaline and fear. He didn't know where he was going, but anywhere seemed safer than staying near those unpredictable hyenas. The hyenas, realizing the cub was no longer in the center of their circle, finally stopped their grooming session. The moment of calm was shattered. They let out piercing screams, sounds that echoed across the savanna and sent shivers down the spine of any living creature within earshot. The cub, upon hearing these blood-curdling cries, froze in his tracks. He knew he couldn't outrun the hyenas for long. Exhaustion was starting to set in. His breaths grew heavier and his legs ached from running. He risked a glance over his shoulder and saw the hyenas gaining on him. They were almost upon him now, their harsh breathing hot on his neck. Trapped and exhausted, the cub braced himself for the inevitable. His mind raced, thinking of his mother, his pride, wondering if this was the end of his story. But just as the hyenas were about to reach him, a new sound cut through the night. A powerful roar, a sound that commanded respect and struck fear into the hearts of predators and prey alike. The hyenas skidded to a halt. Their eyes, wide with recognition and fear, turned towards the direction of the sound. From the distance, a lioness emerged, her muscles rippling beneath her tawny coat. Her gaze was fixed on the hyenas, and her stance showed she was ready to pounce. She was the cub's mother, and she had returned from the hunt just in time. The sight of their enemy, a formidable lioness, drove the hyenas away. They didn't want to face the wrath of a mother protecting her child. They scattered, disappearing into the darkness. The cub's mother reached him, her expression a mix of worry and relief. She nuzzled him, checking if he was hurt. Her low growl rumbling in her chest was a sound of comfort and reassurance. He was safe. The ordeal left the cub shaken but unharmed. The hyenas, despite their menacing presence, hadn't actually harmed him. As the sun rose, bathing the savanna in golden light, the lioness led her cub back to the pride. The other members of the pride greeted them, their eyes questioning. The cub, still trembling slightly from the previous night's events, snuggled closer to his mother. He recounted what had happened, describing the hyenas and their strange behavior. The pride, gathered around them, listened intently. It wasn't every day they heard of hyenas acting so erratic. Amongst them was a wise old lion, his fur streaked with gray. He pondered over the cub's story, his eyes distant as if he were seeing more than what was in front of him. Finally, he spoke, his voice deep and resonant. Hyenas are known to be scavengers and killers, he began, his gaze sweeping over the assembled pride. But their actions are often driven by desperation and necessity. It seems they have a code, an unwritten law that governs their conduct. Even in their savagery, there are limits they won't cross. The pride murmured in response, trying to understand the old lion's words. The cub, still shaken, looked up at his father. He wanted to hear that it was just a dream, that hyenas wouldn't really stand by and watch as a lion cub escaped. But the pride knew better. They had lived long enough to understand the ways of the wild. The old lion continued, his voice a low rumble. In the hierarchy of the savannah, lions and hyenas stand at opposite ends. Yet tonight, they seem to have exchanged roles. The hyenas, normally the hunters, became the hunted. They chose not to kill the cub, perhaps because they sensed their own vulnerability. The cub whimpered, not understanding the complexities of the wild, but feeling the truth in his father's words. "Why didn't they kill me?" he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. The lioness, who had been silent until now, nuzzled her cub. "Perhaps they had their reasons," she said softly, "reasons we may never truly know." She paused, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter why they spared our cub. What matters is that he survived." Her words hung in the air, carrying the weight of experience and wisdom. The pride, understanding the finality of the lioness's words, gradually dispersed. They went about their day, their minds still pondering the events of the previous night. And as the days passed, the memory of the incident faded into the tapestry of everyday life on the savannah. For the cub, though, the experience left an indelible mark. He grew up under the watchful eyes of his mother, always remembering the night the hyenas stood guard. A testament to the unpredictability and raw reality of life in the wild. He would recount the story to the next generation of cubs, his voice echoing with awe and respect for the hyenas. And each time he told the tale, the cubs would huddle closer, hanging on to his every word. For in their young minds, hyenas were no longer just villains in a fairy tale, but complex, intriguing creatures capable of both savagery and unexpected acts of, well, something that bordered on kindness. So next time you think you know how the wild works, remember this story, because out here, in the forgotten path of nature, nothing is ever as simple as predator and prey. Sometimes the deadliest creatures can surprise us with unexpected behavior, and enemies become the most unlikely of allies.